From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. Well, while the daily headlines keep shifting, from war to Epstein to gas prices to God knows what, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that, as we speak, in this nation, tens of thousands of people are being held in concentration camps on American soil. The Associated Press has done some excellent reporting in recent weeks. Camp East Montana is a large immigration and customs enforcement detention facility located on the grounds of Fort Bliss Military Base in El Paso, Texas. Opened less than a year ago, it's the largest immigration detention center in the U.S. It's a tent encampment, capacity for thousands of detainees. Of course, it's a private contract, as are all of these facilities. No stock more valuable these days than the prison industry, if you want to make a killing. Dozens of violations in this one camp alone, and we're talking about just one now, of between 250 and 400 camps across the U.S. We don't really know. The number is growing, holding over 70,000 people. So these inspection violations include failures in medical care, inadequate health screenings, undocumented use of force by guards, all sorts of health and safety concerns. This one had to be quarantined due to a measles outbreak in March. Other cases of tuberculosis, COVID-19. Some human rights organizations and politicians have been able to get in there and have reported widespread issues: neglect, malnutrition, overcrowding, and of course, deaths. At least 3 deaths reported just since December of last year, with one of those deaths in January ruled a homicide. 911 calls from the facility are a daily occurrence. As I said, some lawmakers able to get in have made their reports, their complaints, their charges. I don't know about you, but I haven't heard of any results. Rooms are filthy. Showers and restrooms go uncleaned. Food is scarce. Disease spreads. People held at Camp East Montana losing weight, unable to see doctors. Some, according to reports, losing their minds. Some of these calls to 911, one of them from a nurse about a pregnant woman in severe pain with coronavirus. Detainees suffering seizures, some resulting in serious head trauma. And then this horrifying detail that the AP reporter discovered. A man named Owen Ramsing from Columbia, Missouri, who spent weeks in the camp before being deported to the Netherlands, told the AP that he overheard a security guard talking about a betting pool among the staff. They were wagering on which detainee would be next to die by suicide. The guard said he put $500 in. The total pot rode on the outcome. Mr. Ramsing, who told this story, said it was particularly devastating to him because he himself had contemplated suicide. So guards are gambling on the deaths of people in their custody. And according to the AP, this is not some rogue facility. This is not a bad apple. This is the system working as designed. The overcrowding is by policy, understaffed for profit, underfed, neglect. What they do is they build a place for people to rot. And the AP has the data. They have the recordings, the interviews, the court filings. This is all documented. These are not rumors. This is real. It's happening right now in El Paso, Texas, in the United States of America, and in other facilities around the nation. And the contracts keep going out to the private prison industry. Warehouses converted into concentration camps, tent cities. And as was predicted from the very beginning, this was never only about illegal immigration. That was just the pretext. That was just the easy place to start. Because, of course, the regime has designated virtually half the nation as terrorists. Anyone who doesn't fall in line with the program is eligible for that label of terrorist. Anyone who dares protest, anyone who dares write an op-ed, anyone who looks or sounds different, who looks or sounds suspicious to ICE agents. This was always the goal, to frighten, to threaten, to terrorize. They brag about the self-deportation numbers. And legal citizens, even if you have the right skin color and the right accent, well, they expect those folks to effect their own type of self-deportation in the way of self-censorship. If I can't bring myself to join the regime, at least I'll be silent. The complicity of silence is better than detention in a concentration camp. And we've absolutely seen cases of those detained not for their immigration status, no, for exercising free speech, for having the wrong ideas, for standing up against the regime. So while the headlines continue to parade before us, each day one absurd story after another, one outrageous tweet after another, please remember that the concentration camps are a daily reality and a cornerstone of the regime's agenda. Well, I'll be honest, there are a lot of stories that we don't talk about because, quite frankly, I find them beneath us, not worthy of our time, just salacious, silly. Well, I'm going to talk about a couple of those today. Recent stories about sex and the Pope. First of all, screw the Pope. What happened, of course, the Orange Menace says some mean things about the Pope, and then the press asks the Pope about it, and everybody's all up in arms. And of course, the Orange Menace is an idiot and a psychopath, and we all know that. And the Pope, Pope Leo, answered the way he should, and he's against the war. Of course he is. He's calling for peace because he's the damn Pope. So it all just makes perfect sense. But what's got my goat here today is the shock of it all, the way everybody is clutching their pearls about this stuff. The Pope is just a man among, I don't know, how many billions of men are there in the world? The reverence they give this guy is just, if you want to have your little religion, go ahead, have your religion. But I'm not going to put anybody up on a pedestal and say, oh, this person is beyond criticism. So in this regard, there are going to be a couple times today where I'm going to agree with the Orange Menace. Okay? If he wants to criticize the Pope, I say go ahead. Criticize him. Now, like I said, he's an idiot. He's a psychopath. He's wrong about everything. So the points on which he's criticizing him are completely wrong. But the fact that he's criticizing him is fine with me. Just the fact of it. Go ahead. Call him every name in the book. I don't care. Putting some people over others because they hold some invented fictitious position? This is why we are anarchists. We don't believe in this stupid hierarchy. So screw the Pope. And God bless the Pope. I hope you have a fine, happy day and a good, happy life. And I hope you get along well with your coworkers. Yeah, the Pope holds no special place for me. If the Orange Menace wants to criticize him, go for it. I don't care. So, sex and the Pope. Here's the sex part. And there's a couple parts to this. Melania last week comes out with this ridiculous presser where she claims to really not know Epstein and Maxwell at all. Oh, we just happen to live in the same town, and sometimes would show up at the same parties. And here's where they're turning me into a conspiracy theorist. There's got to be something to this. And then we find out this guy named Paolo Zampoli. He's a buddy of the Orange Menace. He claims to have introduced Melania to him. Okay, so the deal is everybody is wondering why in the hell Melania made this statement in the first place. There's speculation immediately that, well, there must be some story out there she's trying to get ahead of. And then we find out about this woman whose name I can't recall in the moment, but she was Zampoli's ex. Well, this Zampoli guy winds up working for the administration. In fact, he just traveled to Hungary with the vice president. So he's in the circle. He's like the inner circle. Well, he's having a custody battle with, I guess it's his ex-wife or girlfriend, I forget which. And he uses his position in the American fascist regime to have ICE go and arrest and deport his ex. These are the kind of people running things here. And that's the kind of thing you can do when you have a position next to power. You grab a little of that power yourself. Oh, I can use immigration and customs enforcement, the Orange Menace's new private army, his black shirts, and she has indeed been arrested and deported. Oh, Ungaro, that's it. Amanda Ungaro is a former model brought to the United States by Zampoli, who at the time was running a quote-unquote model agency. And she was best buddies with Melania Trump, who also came to the United States as a model. So this Ungaro woman now has it in for Melania and allegedly is threatening to spill the beans on everything evil about Melania and her past and her relationship with Epstein and Maxwell and how she was brought to this country in the first place. So allegedly, Ungaro has all the dirt on Melania and is ready to spill. And apparently that's why Melania made this very strange statement. So, of course, now all the speculation about Epstein and quote-unquote modeling and women and girls and trafficking, and it's just also disgusting. And a perfect reminder that half of the Epstein files are still being hidden behind closed doors, under lock and key, by this very same administration. So these are not special interest stories. They're not just salacious, though they are salacious. And then, of course, while we're talking about sex, well, we have to talk about Eric Swalwell and Tony Gonzalez. Well, we've known the Tony Gonzalez story for a long time now. Republican congressman caught up in horrible allegations, indisputable allegations. Some he's confessed to himself. Well, he's got the boot now, of course, along with Eric Swalwell. Now, when I first heard the Swalwell news that he was abusing women, well, number one, and I'll repeat this as long as it takes, we don't have to live in a world that's organized around hierarchy and powerful men. That's a choice. We can change that. None of these stories are inevitable. Oh, well, that's just the way it's going to be. It's always going to be that way. But as long as we have this system, as long as anarchists sit on the sideline shouting, "Get rid of the hierarchy," and no one's listening to us, as long as that hierarchy exists, it will be the way it is. You know, remember when the Orange Menace, in his videotaped deposition regarding, I forget which of his, the Eugene Carroll case probably, where he said that he was asked about the hot mic incident, where he said he grabbed women by the you-know-what. And if you're rich or powerful, or no, if you're famous, that's what he said. If you're famous, they let you do it. You can get away with it. And he was asked about that. And he doubled down. He said, yeah, that is the case. Here's another incident where I'm going to agree with the Orange Menace. Factually, he was 100% right. Yes, that has been the way for quite a long time. He's factually correct. Men have been able to get away with it. Now, of course, because he's an idiot and he's a psychopath, he had to add, well, for better or worse, or words to that effect. He didn't seem to have any problem with it. But factually, he's 100% right. As long as we have systems that are based on power of one person over another person in any hierarchical setting, and especially a patriarchal one, there's gonna be abuse. I'm not forgiving it. I'm not condoning it. I'm saying it's a fact. This is why we are anarchists. We must destroy the hierarchy. So Swalwell, I hear about Eric Swalwell. over the weekend. Alleged sexual assaults, alleged rape, accusations from one woman and then two and then several. And the first ones I heard, and again, I wasn't following this closely, the first ones I heard sounded like accusations. I also heard somewhere in an early report that Roger Stone had something to do with bringing these allegations to light. So before I read anything, before I knew anything, based on the couple things I heard, it sounded like Swalwell was being Al Frankened. Because, Al Franken is a verb now. He was a victim of the Me Too movement, one of the few. Most of the men who went down during Me Too deserved it. Al Franken did not. He got caught up. He was the proverbial baby thrown out with the bathwater. Yeah, so I thought Eric Swalwell was being Al Frankened. But then more and more credible allegations came out, more women interviewed. It's like, oh no, well, this is way too much. Plus, I remembered that back in, 5-6 years ago, he was involved with this Chinese spy, Fang, I think her name was, Christine Fang, if I've got that right. Correct me if I don't. Yeah, he was tied up with her. This Chinese spy working in America, she had sex, that was confirmed, with a couple of politicians, and there were rumors about several others, and he had a relationship with her. No one was ever able to allege or no proof that they had a sexual relationship, but he definitely had a relationship with her. And ever since then, every time I see him show up in the media, I kind of raise my eyebrow a little bit and think, what is this guy doing? Why does this guy seem to be a rising star in the Democratic Party? Isn't that relationship with the Chinese spy enough to at least keep him as a backbencher? Suddenly now he's the leading candidate for the governor of California? By the way, California, you can't do any better than Antonio Villaraigoso? Than Katie Porter? Come on. California's a big state. This is the best lineup you could come up with? I don't know. I don't know a lot of these names. I don't know anything about Xavier Beccaro. Tom Steyer is a billionaire. Yeah. Come on, California. What are you doing? Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah, Eric Swalwell, leading this motley crew of candidates for California governor. And now that's over, and he's out of Congress. And again, everybody, so shocked. Yes, it's bad. Of course it's bad. Why are we surprised? Why are we shocked? All of these people seem perfectly happy to live in a system that is 100% fueled by power and position, much or most of that having to do with money. You're fine with this system, and then when it spits out the inevitable results, everyone falls to their knees. Oh no, look at these monsters. You create a system where one person has just enormous power over the other people around him, and most of these powerful people are men. What do you think is going to happen? That also describes the Catholic Church. Getting back to the Pope, screw the Catholic Church. What institution in the world is more affiliated with abuse than the Catholic Church? And yet we adhere to this reverence. So, good news, Swalwell is gone forever. Gonzalez is gone forever. Well, maybe I shouldn't say forever, knowing us. He'll be rehabilitated at some point. He'll have a podcast for a few years, and then he'll attempt a comeback, a la Cuomo. But for the moment, we are all righteously condemning sexual assault, as we should. Also, a perfect time for a little reminder that the Orange Menace has dozens of credible accusers. His own words, as we mentioned earlier, about grabbing women. A jury in a federal court found that he raped E. Jean Carroll. He is an adjudicated rapist. Or in other words, he is a rapist. He raped a woman. I don't have to put allegedly in front of that or fear getting in trouble. No, because it's not alleged. It's not accused. It's not charged. It's adjudicated. It's a fact determined by a court of law. Dozens of credible accusations and a finding by a jury in a federal court, and still there he sits in the Oval Office. Why do you think I say all the time that the Republicans are not a legitimate political party? They're a goddamn crime syndicate. It took less than a day, a matter of hours, of Congress in session to rid themselves of 2 members of Congress. And they haven't found the time or the spine to do the same thing with the Orange Menace. The Orange Menace was right. It's the way it is. It's the way it's always been. And if you want to change that, we have to make fundamental systemic changes to the structural order that breeds these problems, namely inequity of power. You and I have talked at length about the inherent problem of hierarchies, the very concept of leaders as opposed to public servants. We've also talked about that sort of teenage attitude, everybody sucks, especially all the adults. Yeah, I feel that often, recently feeling it more strongly than ever. Everybody just sucks. I'm not talking about people in the real world who live and work and study. Many of them actually become experts. I have great respect and admiration for people who reach high levels of skill and expertise. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who find themselves in positions of power. I am less and less interested every day in what presidents have to say, or prime ministers, or diplomats. I especially don't care what CEOs have to tell me, and all their spokespersons. I couldn't care less anymore what they have to say to me. And they're playing this exclusive game to which none of us are invited to play along. They got their own rules, they have their own incentives, and they're a bunch of spoiled, inbred nincompoops. And I'd love to be able to just sit back and laugh at them, except that they affect our lives every day. They affect the planet, for God's sakes. And if that's not bad enough, now we've got, especially in the U.S. fascist regime, we got amateur hour. We have people cosplaying their roles. These ridiculous so-called negotiations between the U.S. and Iran? 21 hours? This kind of diplomacy takes at least 21 weeks and more like 21 months. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, I'm not an expert on international diplomacy and war strategies, but I can read. And every expert in international diplomacy, or in history, or in war, will say the same thing. You can't do this overnight with your real estate buddy and your son-in-law and J.D. Maybelline Vance. This sort of thing takes time. It takes professionals. These are cosplaying amateurs. To be in positions like this, it takes some training. It takes experience. It takes losses and successes on your resume. J.D. Vance, for God. And to think he's a leading candidate to be the nominee in our next presidential election. This is a joke, people. Not to get tied down just on this one guy, because this is a problem overall, but just as an example. Let me stick with J.D. Vance for a second. He has no training whatsoever in what he's doing. Not in education, not in experience, nothing. He has no qualifications to be the Vice President of the United States, let alone to be negotiating on the world stage over issues of war and peace and nuclear proliferation. Okay, this is insane, you guys. He didn't even have experience in any relevant committees in Congress. Nowhere. Anything having to do with international affairs, with war and peace, with diplomacy, nothing. He's a cosplayer. He's an invention of billionaire Peter Thiel, bought and paid for, and thrust into a position of power. We can't live in a system that allows this to happen. This is what I'm fighting for all the time. Under a functioning democracy, this guy never gets further than his goofy little best-selling book. Establish a real democracy where power is distributed laterally and reduce, if not eliminate, the power of money over our lives and over whole systems. It is absolutely within our reach. Let me close with just a little bit of good news here. You know how you and I have been just begging for years now that people stop pretending that the emperor's new clothes are beautiful? There's this strategy from business leaders and CEOs and world leaders and all these people pretending that the Orange Menace is somehow legitimate, that his government is legitimate. And they're getting all this advice to flatter him, to praise him, to pretend he is what he claims to be. Because that's how then you can get what you want. It was a horrible strategy from the very beginning, and way too many people bought in. All of corporate America pretty much bought in. Local, state, and federal lawmakers, people who held positions of power, bought in. Leaders and politicians across the world bought in. This guy from NATO, Rutter, the Trump whisperer. People giving Zelensky advice on how to handle him. You know what? Here's the good news. That era, I think, is ending. This past week has been kind of amazing. Open, honest statements from lawmakers in Italy, in Spain, in Canada. We all know what the Pope had to say. Right here in the U.S., the America First wing of MAGA. Yeah, the Emperor's New Clothes era just might be ending. We're finally able to look each other in the eye, look into the camera, speak into the microphone, and tell the truth. Look at what just happened in Hungary with their election. What happened in Wisconsin, the recent election for Supreme Court. I happened to see a map of Hungary, colored in blue and red, for Orban versus Magyar. And I put it next to a map of Wisconsin, blue and red, for the conservative and the liberal candidates for Supreme Court. And damned if they didn't look identical. Even people like Bruce Springsteen. Sure, a lot of artists will holler from the stage, but the prominence and the megaphone that Bruce Springsteen has when his concerts are being covered by network news. Yeah, we got something going. I'll give you this example. Maybe the best example. This is a member of the British Parliament, Ed Davey. Speaking in Parliament, you know where they all yell at each other? Well, his feedback was all in support. And this is what he said, speaking of the Orange Menace. He is no leader of the free world. He is a corrupt and dangerous gangster, and that is how we must treat him. I've been begging people like him to say those exact words. So who's next? Come on, join the chorus. Maybe we can start to put this behind us. At least cut out the pretending that things are normal. All right. You can find this episode and all episodes at the website, charlesburcell.com, or on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio in Milwaukee. Find us on Blue Sky and Substack. Peter Donalds wrote and performed our theme song. There you go. I love you. I'll see you out there.